Good afternoon. Today is August 3rd, 2015, and this is the meeting of the Glendale Water and Power Commission. Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Sure. Before I proceed, President Chen will not be available. Okay, Commissioner Hale?
Present.
Camargo?
Here.
Avanesian?
Here.
And Commissioner Lal?
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. What's the next item?
2 is consent items, approval of the July 13, 2015 meeting minutes.
Members, at this time, it would be appropriate to entertain any motions to amend the minutes to better reflect our last meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes?
I have none.
Commissioner Lal?
None.
Seeing none, I will go ahead and move that we approve those on unanimous consent.
3, GWP Commission staff comments, plaque presentation to outgoing Commissioner Hugh Yao.
So it is a bittersweet moment that we honor Commissioner Yao for his 8 years of service to the Glendale Water and Power Commission. When I first joined the commission, Commissioner Yao was the president of the commission, a role that he served very ably and with great distinction. So Commissioner Yao, if you would please come up to the dais with me and join me at your former seat. And it's my pleasure to present you with this plaque in recognition of your service to the utility and to the city of Glendale. And if you'd like to take a seat for one last time and share your thoughts with...
Oh, sure. I do it down there, but thank you, Commissioner Hale. Well, first of all, thank you, my colleagues, and welcome to the new commissioners. Well, I just want to take this opportunity to thank initially Mayor Najarian and former Councilmember Weaver, who appointed me 8 years ago when we had a 2 councilmember appointment. And then later on, former Councilmember Weaver appointed me when we changed that process. So I really appreciate those councilmembers giving me the opportunity to share this experience with all the staff and the city. So it's been a wonderful experience for the last 8 years. And it's not a title I happily add to my repertoire, being a commissioner. You know, I have a lot of titles underneath me, but unfortunately, last year, I added a title that was from an exclusive club. I became a cancer survivor. Excuse me. And many of you know I'm in remission, so fortunately, thank God, it's been 10 months since my treatment, but I'm still going through the side effects, so my throat is still very dry and raspy. So fortunately, that title, I don't wish any of you to join that membership, because being a cancer survivor is not something that one would take lightly. I had to go through hell to get to this point, but unfortunately, it's not over. And I don't know how much longer I have. I mean, it's up to God to call my number whenever He's ready. But it's not. But even I don't think I have enough more time than what I thought I would have before my treatment. And so I just want to say thank you for everyone, and also make my goodbyes. You know, I might not see you guys again. Not that I'm not going to be around, but I'll be around. But I'll run into you one way or another. But if I don't see you all again, then I just want to say goodbye. I mean, if I'm around long enough, I want to be able to. My plan was at least to run for city council. So those are the 2 titles I was looking forward to having after this commission, was council member and maybe mayor. So hopefully that opportunity will still present itself. But the 2 titles that I'm really proud to have is pretty much being a husband and a father. And so I'm really grateful to be a husband to my beautiful wife, Tessa, who I've known for like 21 years. And then being a father to my beautiful 11-year-old. Feel good. I know that those are the 2 titles that means the most to me. And not only do I want to say goodbye to the city staff and all my colleagues, and to the great citizens of Glendale. But if somewhere, somehow, God calls my number before then I do want to say goodbye also to my wife and my daughter. I know that for my wife, I want you to move on, maybe find happiness. I know you won't see this, but someday when you look back, you can see that we were great soulmates, know each other for 21 years. It's been a blessing having you in my life. But I want you to find happiness and to move on if something were to happen to me. And for my daughter, if I never get the opportunity to see you grow up, and all the opportunities that I might not see you go through graduating high school or college, oh, you know that I might not be there for you physically, but know that I'm there for you. And I want you to make good judgment. I know you're a very smart, intelligent girl. So I know you'll find happiness. And I'll always be looking over for you, okay? So take care of yourself, and especially take care of your mama. If I'm not around, just take care of each other and know that I'll always love you. Okay, thank you, everyone. It's great being here again and to finally see everyone's faces. Maybe for one last time, if I'm around, I'll bump into you guys and say hello. But know that I'll keep up the fight and continue to do the best that I can and help serve the city as best as I can. Thank you all.
Yeah, Mr. Yao, on behalf of GWP and staff, we appreciate the time you spent with us and the guidelines and directions you've given us in the last 8 years. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Yep.
Wait, hang on, let's get one more.
Should we get one with the whole commission?
Let's wrap it. Everybody getting close.
Good to see you.
Water.
Stuff up. There you go. See you.
For his action items.
Actually, before we move on to item number 4, it is on a somewhat happier note that we are able to announce the arrival of our new commissioner, Huran Avanesian. Mr. Avanesian, I don't know if you want to share any words now, or you'd like to wait until the end of the meeting to address the commission, or just move right into business. Please.
So,
my name is Hrant Avanesian, and I'm a resident of Glendale for 15 years. And I hold master's degree in electrical engineering, and I've experienced more than 40 years in power. And I have I'm registered California professional engineer, and I'm married with my beautiful lady, Audrina, for 30 years. And I have two sons. My elder son is 30 years old. He graduated from UC Irvine. He's an electrical engineer as well. And my second son, 26, he's into arts. And thank you for listening to that.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Avanesian, for introducing yourself. And I know I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure that everyone is looking forward to working with you here on the Commission. And EWP is good a utility as we can make it.
5A reports, strategic plan quarterly report.
Mr. Craig Coonan, our Business Transformation and Marketing Administrator, is going to present our quarterly update on our strategic plan.
Mr. President, Commissioners, Craig Keenan, Business Transformation and Marketing Administrator, Glendale Water and Power. And as Mr. Boeg said, I'm here to give you an update on our strategic plan. It's a quarterly update. I'll do a quick overview because we have new people here, and welcome. We're glad to see you. We have 20 strategic goals, and underneath there's 40 key initiatives. And they're in 6 areas of emphasis: customer engagement and satisfaction, organization and structure, grid operations, technology and business systems, power, water, and facilities, and financial performance and business development. Yep. Oh. So you already switched it, didn't you? The ultimate goal of our strategic plan is to flow into and support the larger Glendale vision, to provide a premier city anchored in pride of civic ownership, where success is realized through community that is safe, prosperous, and rich in cultural offerings. This vision is accomplished with emphasis on fiscal responsibility, exceptional customer service, economic vibrancy, informed and engaged community, safe and healthy community, balanced quality housing, community services and facilities, infrastructure and mobility, arts and culture, and sustainability. So the way we've set up the scorecard is we give ourselves marks: green if we're ahead of expectations, yellow if we're on schedule, and red if we're behind. We're early in the process, so all of the goals you'll see are going to be in yellow, but you'll see underneath there, you'll see different colors for the key initiatives that feed into this. And I do have some data, but since it's the end of the fiscal year, we won't have financial or operational statistics for a couple months. So at the next report, you'll get more of the details you were asking for the last time. So if we go through customer engagement and satisfaction, our goal was to be in the top 25% in our customer service satisfaction surveys. We have every indication we're going to get there. We are doing an oversample of residential customers this summer, so that'll give us an idea if that assumption is right. But we think, having been through the rate increases and the things the past few years and implemented a number of projects that are helpful with customer service, that we should see an improvement. So in terms of the key initiatives, One of them was we wanted to do a mobile access pilot for customers or implement mobile access data to customers by December of this year. We've done a successful pilot. Council has approved us to go full scale with that, and we're currently in the contracting phase. This number goes up every day, but when I filled this in, we had 1,763 enrolled in that pilot. It goes up about 150 a month. Another key initiative was develop a common customer experience across at least 2 platforms. Well, we have O-Power, we have WaterSmart, we have the mobile platform. In another few weeks, we'll be rolling out the second phase of the SIVA frame, which is about 1,000 customers over the next year. So we're moving ahead with that. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I can comment on whenever ones you want to pick out. As far as customer service direct contact, we wanted to reduce that in 3 different areas by 5%. We came close for cashiers. We were down 3%. The front counter decreased 5%, but our actual handled calls went up 6%. We think a lot of that is due to the drought. We're getting a lot of people calling in to report water wasters. We also implemented the drought charge on the bills a couple months ago, and people had a lot of questions about that. So there were some unusual things that came up. As far as billing exceptions, we decreased those by 10%, and we expect to see a larger increase once we finish with our automation platform at the end of the year, towards the end of the year.
So, Craig, while we're on this slide,
Sure.
Item number 6 deals with the direct contact, and you mentioned that the handled calls have increased by 6% attributable to the drought. Is there any way that we can automate the call system so that maybe people can report water wasters in addresses for a water waster in some kind of a computerized fashion?
That is something we're going to look at in the next phase of the mobile platform. We've been in discussions with SUS, who is doing that platform for us, and there are ways they can relieve the pressure off of customer service, allow people through the mobile app to take pictures and report people that way, and allow mechanisms for customer service to, through the computer systems, track things and not have to do everything manually. So yes, the answer is yes on that. On organization and structure, not a lot to report on that right now. Most of these goals are way out there. They take a long time to implement. They have to do with increasing or decreasing staffing in different areas, cultural changes, things like that.
So Craig, in the interest of, actually, I'll go to Commissioner Camargo.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Greg, so my question for you on this set of goals, I think all of them on this page, is as compared to some of the others, you have some goals that are very quantitative, right, where you're heading for a numerical target, and these seem to be a little bit more qualitative. So how do you measure? How do you establish where you're headed and track progress over time, and I guess maybe more to the point, how do you really measure these goals?
Well, in terms of the strategic goals, yes, they are more subjective. But if you look at the projects that flow in, they have defined dates when certain things are to be done, and it was in our planning, and that these are the things we felt we needed to do to reach those other goals. So as you see these things being done or not being done, you'll see these change color, the goals.
And Craig, as you proceed into the presentation, 2 of our commissioners are brand new, and this is the first time seeing some of this for them. So you might want to elaborate a little bit on some of the slides in a way that you wouldn't necessarily.
Sure.
Instead of.
Do you want me to start with this one, or do you want me to go back?
Commissioners Lal and Avanesian, do you guys want to drill down into any of these?
Actually, I myself, I've read this because it was sent to me.
Sure.
So if it touches most important things, it's good for me.
Okay. So feel free to jump in if.
And feel free to stop me at any time and ask a question. Well, I'll go through these here. In terms of key initiatives for the organization and structure, we want to develop and implement an internal communications program, and our goal was to have that done, the end of this year. And that's why you'll see December in the 15-16 column. These are fiscal years, so December. We have the safety recognition program. We wanted to reinstitute that. We wanted to review the organization and maximize organizational efficiency where we could, and have a succession plans in place for various key positions. That's June of next year. We develop clear standards and operating procedures, December. This next one's a little further out. Implement a training program to ensure that people receive the necessary training and become technically proficient in their current positions or other positions. Look at all the different job titles from how the organization was in the past, see what's needed, and update those. That's June of 2017. So that one's a little bit out there too. Grid operations. I do have some data for this. Although the final numbers are not in, the reduced number of preventable outages to less than 25 per year. Mr. Boyd has told me that we had 7 last year.
That's correct. For the fiscal year 14-15, we actually had only 7 preventable outages, but we had several outages due to things out of control, like Mylar balloons, and rodents are starting to really bug me, literally. So
as far as you give a separate report on that, though. Reduced number of unscheduled outages to less than 25 for water. I believe we had 22. Unaccounted for water, the last quarter it was at 6%. I did read a report where the average for the last 10 years is 6%. But I think Mr. Delgado will be having a presentation at some point about water facilities. But we're at 6%, so it's a little above our goal, but this doesn't kick in until June of next year.
Could I just briefly ask, what is unaccounted for water? I think I can guess, but if you could just define it for me.
Basically, it's the difference between what we pump and purchase and what we actually can bill for. Or another variable might be things like use of fire hydrants or where we can track that, so it's not unaccounted. It's water we don't really know where it went when you look at the difference of the two. Is that? Yes.
And is that a pretty standard percentage across utilities? 5-6%?
Last I remember, we're signatory to the California Urban Water Management Council, and if you're 10% or below, you're kind of okay, but 5% and less is where you want
really
to be.
Good. Okay.
And that's why we've adopted the 5%.
Okay. So right now we're at 6.
For last quarter.
Okay. Most recent number. Okay.
Yeah, and so next time we'll have I'll try and get you a number for the whole year. That's the number I have right now. So see, reduce technical and non-technical electric system losses to below 6%. I don't know if we don't have that number yet.
No, we don't, but the standard is 7%. So what this is this includes the efficiency of our equipment, including losses in using transformers and cables. And you will see it in capital improvement programs. Some of the projects we're doing is the conversion from 4 kV to 12 kV and 34.5 to 69 kV. The higher the voltage, the less the losses. And that also includes some of the energy theft that we've been able to capture.
And the last one is to fully automate 35% of our feeders by 2020. How many feeders do we have? How many feeders do we have? 115 or something?
We have a total of 111 feeders. and we're hoping to get the 35% is pretty aggressive, I think, but we think we'll get there.
So, in terms of grid operations, we had we have 7 key initiatives in this area, and they all are on track. Continue piloting systems to ensure analytics, automation, and control operate across multiple systems and functions. And that's kind of ambiguous, but we've got a number of projects. We had done our OMS DMS project, a meter data analytics project, our conservation voltage reduction project, a project to automate the data getting into our customer information system, the automation project. These are all examples of what that key initiative is. Complete the upgrade to the Grandview substation by 2016. That's on schedule. Ramon has assured me that the site has been demolished. He's ordered the long lead equipment, and the conceptual design is complete.
That's correct. And we will provide you with detailed updates next when we address the capital improvement programs.
The other one Ramon spoke to a bit, 4 kV to 12 kV upgrade. We want to upgrade 6 feeders a year, and we did that last year. To fully implement the electric and water meter data analytics by June, that'll be done in the next couple weeks. We had some delays in the data warehouse. We have to move the archive data in there, and once that's done, we can run the system. Outage management pilot, that's been complete. Conservation voltage reduction pilot, we completed that, and now Council has approved a full-scale program, and we're in the process of implementing that. The automation of the additional feeders, that's reclosers and other kinds of technologies on the feeders. I don't know if you wanted to speak to that at all.
Yeah, on that note, the item number 3, which is the conversion of 6 feeders from 4 to 12, and number 7, eventually we'll be tying those so that once we touch the feeder, we automate it at the same time. As we upgrade, they're actually getting automated. So that this number of goals may be reduced and just tie those two together.
So the next area is technology and business systems. We had the 3 goals. Ensure all business and operational systems are interconnected through an enterprise-wide IT architecture by 2019. Ensure all business and operational system visibility extends across all business lines of business and business functions, and that's also 2019. These are long-term goals. The security, privacy, and performance are considered in all IT implementations across the enterprise. That's cybersecurity. And it's also everything we do in the IT world goes through the city IT department and gets pre-approved before we implement it, just so we're all on the same page and we're following all the guidelines. In terms of key projects, we had a goal to virtualize our computer environment by June 2015. That's been done, and it was on budget. Another project was June 2015 to upgrade our OpenWay and ORS operational reporting system by June. We did that. In fact, we're going on with an additional upgrade that isn't listed here to, I think it's 6.9 on the OpenWay that will be done in the next month or so with that. This is upgrade to the firmware and the meters in the field. Another key project is the upgrade of our meter data management system, which manages all the data coming back from the field. We're looking to upgrade that by June of 2016. We'll have a fully functioning business intelligence program by 2017. That's where we can look at all the data we're bringing in and make sense out of it, and create dashboards and other automate KPIs and our key performance indicators, and and put together this data in formats where it's easily read. It's updated automatically. It doesn't take us, we don't have to wait forever to get reports. So fully integrate the business IT through, that's mainly a sort of a repeat of the other goal. We are doing that. We had a ETRM, which takes care of the trading and tracks the trading in the market group. That project was integrated through the enterprise service bus. Our OMS DMS project was integrated through the enterprise service bus. The enterprise service bus, basically, the reason for using that, you don't have to take systems and go point-to-point architecture. I'm not an IT expert, but if you put point-to-point, every time you make a change, then you might break it, and then you have to go back and fix it. If everything is linked up through the enterprise service bus as a middleware, then it automatically updates the other systems. So the other is the data warehouse and business intelligence tools. I spoke to that. The warehouse will be done here in a couple weeks, and then we have to look at tools for doing the business intelligence over the next year or so. Outage management, we've completed that pilot. The automation platform that I spoke about a little bit earlier, we're scheduled to have that done in December. That should then help Tammy's group with bill exceptions and getting that bill number up. And then effective mobile workforce and asset management, that's a couple of years out. So power water facilities, we have 3 upgrade water system facilities to automate pumps to reduce energy costs by December 2017. Start construction to repower Grayson plant by 2020. And complete the conceptual plant for a second interconnection facility by 2017.
So, Craig and Ramon, I wanted to touch on the Grayson repowering. 2020 seems like a little far away right now, but decisions are going to need to be made pretty soon about what to do with Grayson, right? So what's the time horizon for decision making on that?
Yeah, if you don't mind, when we do the capital improvement projects presentation, that's one of the main projects we're going to address, and we'll fill you in on where we are on the status.
The same thing for the interconnection facility. I believe we've looked at that, right? That's part of the capital too. Well, that'll be talked about in the next. So here are the key initiatives. Develop a plan to forecast power needs based on real-time data. That's June of 2016. The water master plan, that's in process right now. It's on schedule, and I'm sure you'll get to see it after it's complete in December. The other item, the conceptual plan to repower Grayson, that's ahead of schedule. In the conceptual plan to add a second connection, that's basically completed, because you'll talk about that, right?
Yeah, that's correct. The comment under number 3, conceptual plan for Grayson Power Plant, that comment applies to Grandview. We have not demolished the site yet, so.
Sorry about that.
So it's still there, so don't be surprised.
Sorry. That was in. Okay, but the study's been complete on the second connection to the state electric transmission grid, and that you've concluded it's not feasible to do that. So that's closed item. The integrated resource plan, that's been completed. We haven't started working on the TOU or the time of use or electric vehicle rates yet. And as far as recycled grant funding, I know Mr. Delgado's been working hard on that, and he has a number of grant applications out there. Financial performance and business development. We have 3 goals. We want to ensure that we're consistently in the top 25% of APA utilities of similar size and location as measured by the biannual EPPA Performance Indicators Survey. I can tell you the numbers kind of estimates I've seen. We were looking really good. It's just they're not final. We don't have the final numbers, so I can't present. That would be probably November. We would have those numbers. Develop organization capabilities to support optimal management of assets. That's the workforce management and asset management program. And as far as identify profitable new business ventures, by 2016, we do have, I'll show you here that we have gone to council and got approval to do a fiber business plan, and we are in the process of doing the contracting, and the hope is to increase our fiber optic revenues by 5% a year starting next year. I talked about the automation of the key performance indicators through our business intelligence program. And the business case for, like I said, asset management and workforce management, we haven't started that yet. That's what I have. Do you have any questions?
One question for you. Thank you for sharing this information with us. Great plan. A lot of work certainly to be done. And so I appreciate you coming to the commission and providing an overview of the status. My question for you is, how does this plan and the key performance indicators you'll be building, I know that you're working on automating some of these systems through your business intelligence program. So, but the question is, how do you use this with the staff in order to manage work as you go along?
Yeah, what we've done with this is, as you would see when we do the CIP presentations, is we take the strategic goals and the direction we've been given, and we turn that into what we call programs and projects. So we create a program that identifies the certain areas we need to deal with, and underneath each program, like system improvements, we have several projects that we would address and tell you what the progress is. So the KPI is coming from actually the execution of the projects and the programs contributing to our long-term goals. So we've taken that down from what I call the big picture, the 5,000-foot level, which is the strategic goals, taking to a capital improvement programs, and then taking to specific projects that lead into those programs. And you will see that in our presentation.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
So before leaving, I was just going to continue what my colleague was asking. So for this program, you have breakdown of tasks, and do you have manpower related to that? So, I mean, so be able to quantify, for example, this task is going to be like, for example, 500 man hours. And we are going to do this, and we are going to produce this. And is it quantified like that, or?
I can't. Can you speak to that? Or?
Yeah, if I may, what we tried to do in this report, what we submitted, rather than giving you a PowerPoint, we actually submitted to you a detailed report on where we are with our capital improvement program. It's a report. It outlines what we budgeted and what we accomplished in the past few years. It also outlines what we budgeted for the coming years and what we hope to accomplish. So that I think that answers the questions you're looking for. So rather than giving you a PowerPoint, this is in a format that we thought that would connect what we presented here and versus what it is we're trying to do at staff level.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Next item, Madam Clerk.
Okay. 5B is legislative quarterly update.
So let me introduce Ms. Silva Ogurlian. She's our community outreach associate, but she's also serving a second hat, keeping track of our regulatory requirements. Silva.
Good afternoon, Commission members. My name is Silva Ogurlian, and I'm the Community Outreach Associate for GWP. I'm here to give you a brief update on legislative items. I'm going to start with the California drought bill that was introduced last week on July 29 by Senators Dianne Feinstein and Barbara Boxer. It's the California Emergency Drought Relief Act. And this bill has both short and long-term provisions designed to help communities cope with the ongoing drought and to combat future droughts. The key provisions in the bill will assist rural and disadvantaged drought-stricken communities with a new USDA program, seek federal support for desalination projects, promote the building of new reservoirs, support water recycling projects, increase agriculture water conservation mandates, and expand protection for threatened fish and wildlife. The program will provide funds to suffering communities, mainly those that have 10,000 or less residents, to use for projects ranging from bottled water deliveries to improving water treatment plants. The legislation largely focuses on obtaining federal funding to get expensive water projects up and going, off the ground. The bill identifies 26 desalination projects in California and unlocks $100 million in federal funding to both build and research such plants. The legislation also includes $600 million to CalFed for water storage projects and $200 million to expand and improve water recycling programs. Shifting to our state legislature, we have AB 1164 by Assemblymember Mike Gatto regarding water conservation measures, and this would give Californians more tools to do their part to save water during the drought and the continuing drought that we have. The measure would roll back local ordinances that take away a homeowner's option to install drought-resistant landscaping such as artificial turf on their lawn. It also provides funding for local governments and water districts to give homeowners incentives to take actions and take measures towards saving water. AB 1164 is currently in the Committee of Appropriations and as of July 16th. The next...
That's Senate Appropriations, right?
Yes, yes. No, I'm sorry. That's for our, yes. Commission on Appropriations. Yes, the Senate Commission on Appropriations. The next item I have is SB 350, which is the Clean Energy and Pollution Reduction Act of 2015. The purpose of SB 350 is to create jobs, grow the state's economy, and improve public health by setting new standards for California's renewable portfolio standards, known as RPS, reducing petroleum use and increasing energy efficiency in existing buildings. The legislation increases the RPS by 50%, reduces petroleum use by 50%, and achieves 50% greater efficiency in buildings by the year 2030. We're in support of this bill and its efforts to raise the standards in California. However, we'd like to see something less prescriptive in the method we are to reach the goals. Therefore, we're continuing to work with the different parties in order to come to a resolution. And lastly, yes,
Commissioner Camargo.
So question,
Yes,
where does that get us then in terms of, is a 50% increase on what, on top of the 33%? What is
Yes.
what is the actual numerical target for the bill?
the target is 50%, but it's increasing from the 33%
Oh, it's
that
50
was
okay, not a 50%.
enacted in 20.
Got it.
And I think it kicks the deadline out to 2030 as well.
Yes,
so
2030.
So we move from 33% by 2020 to 50% by 2030.
30,
Yes.
okay.
Now, what does the bill do on the existing 33% targets? So what are those still in effect, and then it's just the stretch goal out to 2030, or do we just do away with the old RPS program and move forward?
I believe the existing RPS program is still in place. That hasn't been displaced by SB 350. The
Yes.
only difference going from 2020 to 2030, the new bill that was introduced, is they're telling us how to get to 50%. And they're not giving us credits for any of the improvements we've already made or reductions we've made. So what we're trying to ask them to consider is give them credit so that the base that they're using is not moving forward by going back pre-2012, I believe.
So just a quick question. The issue then is to establish what is the baseline against which that 50% reduction is being judged?
That's one of them.
Okay.
Plus how we get there, how much solar, how much wind. One of the issues we're facing is they've addressed three of the legs that we talked about. We talked about the conservation or the environment, talked about reliability, and talked about cost. They talk about in all the bills about the environment and about reliability, but cost has never been really discussed as a factor. And what we're trying to assess or let them understand is that the cost will eventually be felt by ratepayers. So we're asking them to be careful how the law is being written right now.
And lastly, just for your information, our state legislature is on recess right now, and they'll reconvene as of August 17th, when we will have more updates to these bills, if you guys have any other questions.
A couple other questions. So I think I heard you say that we are in. So come at it from a different manner. Can you confirm with the three different bills that you covered what the position is? Support.
We don't have formal positions, so we just keep track of them. We watch them, and based on if anything is alarming or if we need to comment on anything, we then take it to the next level.
Okay.
So on that note, maybe, our commission is not going to take a position on legislation, obviously, but the city council and through SCAPA, the city can participate in lobbying processes and ways of shaping that legislation. Perhaps at our next meeting, we could get an update on the RPS and some of the compliance issues that we might face with the RPS bill. And that way we might be able to make a recommendation for the city council on how to advocate for the utility's best interests in the legislature.
Yes, of course.
Yes, Mr. Hill, we'll do that.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next item, Madam Clerk.
C is capital improvement projects. Update, One Power and Electric.
Let me introduce Mr. Avidian. Varujan Avidian is our principal electrical engineer, and he will give you an update on what we're doing with the electric system, including the power plant.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the Commission. My name is Varujan Avidian, principal electrical engineer with Glendale Water and Power. Like Mr. Abuik mentioned, I'm here to present to you our capital improvements program report. Basically, I was going to go through the strategic plan and our strategic goals, but Mr. Keenan already covered this pretty extensively, so I'm not going to go through that. Let's jump to the major projects we have. We briefly talked about, Mr. Keenan briefly talked about Grandview Substation project. We are currently in construction with this project, and this is a brief history of the substation. It's been in service since 1930s. It had a capacity of 22.5 MVA, and the operating voltages were 4 kV for distribution and 34.5 kV for subtransmission voltage. It used to serve 436 commercial and industrial customers and over 1,100 residential customers. Basically, the purpose of this project under construction of the Grandview substation is to upgrade the capacity of the substation to help us support the load growth for San Fernando corridor. And also, we're going to upgrade the distribution and subtransmission voltages to 12 kV and 69 kV to match the existing neighboring substations, such as Western Substation. And by doing that, we're going to improve the reliability of our system. The new substation, as part of this project, will have state-of-the-art protection relays and equipment, which will support a distribution automation program. In addition to that, as far as aesthetically, currently outside the switchgear rack, there's a fence around it that you can see inside the substation. As part of the project, we're going to put a perimeter wall, which is going to cover all the transformers and switchgears within the yard. There is a link that we set up for the for this project, As you can see, this is an architectural rendering of the substation. On the left-hand side, it's the existing building that if you drive down on San Fernando Road, you can see the existing substation building. On the right-hand side, it's the proposed wall that I just talked about.
Very nice.
And if you go down the website, we've set up 2 cameras, and basically that takes every 15 minutes a snapshot of the field condition. And the nice part of this is that there is a time-lapse movie, which if you click on it, it's going to show you the time-lapse from the beginning. If you like, we can run the time-lapse for you guys to see how it looked like before. Right now, basically, it shows the yard section and the rack and all the transformers and circuit breakers have been removed.
Yeah, currently the substation, we're in the process of obtaining permits. So we've demolished the site. We're ready to go. The major equipment has been purchased, and we're currently on track to complete by 2016 as scheduled. And this is for new commissioners as well as commissioners that we have. If you have not visited, we have a Gloria substation that we upgraded not too long ago. So you can see the difference between an old substation versus a new substation. So you can see the difference. So if you'd like, we can arrange for you to see what that's going to look like.
Question for you. So in removing the old substation, are you required to check for contaminants in the soil?
Yeah, we did that. We did the Title I, Title II. We also ran into some contamination in the building itself that we have to clear out before we can continue the work. So we ran into some asbestos, and we ran into the soil wasn't contaminated because we didn't have any leaks coming from the equipment that we had. It's mainly in the building and in the paint. Asbestos and lead paint is what we encountered at the site. They have been completely abated, and we're ready to go.
Excuse me, a question. My understanding is you're increasing the voltage.
Correct.
And you're using the same space. Have you checked the distances? Because when you increase the voltage, the clearances, distances are different.
That's correct. Basically, the old substation used to have the air-insulated switchgear, and that requires a lot more space. The new design, we are using the gas-insulated substation, which they call GIS. It doesn't need that much space. It's a lot more compact, so we were able to use the existing site, putting more capacity in it.
Nice.
The next project, which we briefly, or Mr. Kinnan briefly talked about it, is our integrated resource plan. The plan has been completed and was presented to the City Council back in June 2nd, and that's where they authorized us to move forward with the 2 stages of the project. Basically, the first phase is to use the Shoal landfill gas and build a generation facility over there to use the gas at the site. That's going to save us approximately $10 million a year on air quality credits. The second phase is to...
Sorry, while we're on the landfill gas, biogas is one of those renewable portfolio compliant sources of electricity. Are we counting that as part of our RPS portfolio?
That's correct. Currently, the way we are operating the Shoal landfill, we're only getting partial credit for REC, for renewable energy credits. By moving the generation at the Shoal landfill, we're going to get 100% credit for every megawatt that produced out of the plant, and that's included in the benefits that we're getting. When we completed the IRP, the decision was made that it's better if we produce and create some local benefit coming from Shoal rather than trying to transport the gas and then blending it with natural gas.
Then, as we proceed into analyzing SB 350, anytime you do an RPS update, there's a frenzy to amend the renewable definitions or what eligible resources can be used. So we should track that very closely to make sure that all of this planning that we're going to do is not going to reduce our RPS compliance.
That's correct. So let me address the question that you had earlier, President Hale. When we presented to the City Council the project to repower the Grayson Power Plant, there are critical milestones that we addressed, that some important decision points that need to be made. The whole project, we're estimating an investment of about $350 million or so, upwards. And so before we enter into major negotiations, we will go back to you and the City Council and let you know these are major decision points, whether to proceed or to cut out the project. But one of the most important points to consider is once we decide to move on with the project, we're going to remove all the old units except for unit number 9. And that's why the decision was made to separate the Shoal landfill. Whether or not we repower at Grayson, we're going to do the Shoal landfill because of the benefits that it provides to us. But what we would take away if we don't rebuild the power plant would be the reliability, local reliability that we're able to provide to our customers.
All right. With that, basically, we are in the design stage, and we are working on developing the milestones that's scheduled for the final schedule for this project. The next major project we have is voltage conversion, our voltage conversion project, and that is to convert our distribution voltages from 4 kV to 12 kV and our subtransmission voltages from 34.5 kV to 69 kV. What that will do is that's going to give us a lot more capacity on our lines, and that's going to help us to meet the customer demand. And also, by increasing the voltage, it's going to decrease the losses on our system. In addition, we're going to be replacing older infrastructure with new and more efficient equipment. The next project we have is our grid modernization project. This project basically has 2 main components. The first component is the distribution automation part. That is to modernize 6 feeders per year. Part of that project is to install automated reclosers, field reclosers on our distribution feeders, and that's going to enable us to automatically isolate outages and faults and restore power to unaffected areas. And it's going to basically give us better coordination of our protection devices, and also it's going to have remote switching capabilities. The next project is to install automated and controlled capacitor banks in our feeders, and that's going to help us with our power factor improvements and corrections. Thus, it's going to reduce our losses, and it's going to help us manage our distribution voltage.
Question for you on the installation of the automatic reclosers. So bear with me as I try to stumble through this question.
Sure.
So in the case of a downed wire, I would assume that this might require somewhat of a public education campaign. So a downed wire that if you might look at one moment and appears, to the extent you can tell such things by visual inspection, to be de-energized. If we reclose automatically, it could re-energize while it's still down. So one, is that correct? And if so, are there thoughts about any public education campaign among our customers in order to address the issue?
As far as the reclosing, if there's a down wire, what's going to do, there are going to be several reclosers on the line. The first recloser, or the closest recloser, basically it's going to open, but since the fault is there, it's not going to reclose, because it sees the fault current.
Okay.
If the reclosers upstream, they're going to reclose and they're going to restore power to the unaffected areas.
Okay.
As far as public outreach. Sure.
Yeah, we will probably copy or imitate what Southern California Edison has been advertising on the radio. Basically, if you see a downed wire, call 911 or call a certain number. Because they can't assume that those wires are not energized. Even if they're telephone wires, they may be in contact in some energized wire somewhere. So we'll probably piggyback in some outreach. That's the same thing as Southern California Edison is doing.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right, the next big component of our grid modernization is the software component, and which is the outage management and distribution management system. This has been initially implemented in March of 2015, And what this does is it's going to enable us to communicate with the field reclosers and field devices. And that's going to bring us all the information back, and it's going to our dispatchers are going to use the information to make an informative judgment as far as what to do with the system and where to dispatch the crews and so forth. And that's going to basically improve our reliability numbers significantly. We are scheduled to go live with this program by the end of this month, by the way. The next few slides, basically, they have been provided to you as part of the report. If you have any questions, I'm not planning to go through each one of them individually, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
What we tried to show in the report is to show you the different projects that we're undertaking in the budget. As we prepare the budget every year, our task is we update this 5-year plan on an annual basis. It's a 5-year plan, but we update it based on our budget and based on whether or not there's a shift in priority based on what's happening with the system. So by around spring of every year, before we finalize the budget, our engineering section, they complete a 5-year improvement plan, and either we stay current with the plan or make the necessary adjustments. So what you see here is the list of major projects that we said we would embark upon in the next 5 years. So if you have any questions on any of the specific projects, we'll gladly present to you additional information or let us know.
Commissioners, any questions on the table at the back of the PowerPoint? I just have one related to the Grayson lines. Short of the last 4, which I'll deal with, Grayson Unit 9 and the fire protection system and the repowering, those are understandable, and we're keeping Unit 9 in any scenario. But some of the other improvements to Grayson are pretty costly. And I just wonder, are these necessary for reliability purposes, or are these some things that we can sort of revisit and take a look at in light of the fact that we're going to be doing a wholesale replacement of the Grayson plant?
We are revisiting. These projects are the ones that we establish. For example, the biggest item there is, if you look at your report, the 4th line item, which is the retubing, replacing the wall for unit number 4. That will cost about $4.5 million. And one of the challenges that we have, as you pointed out earlier, Commissioner Hale, is we're looking at least 2020 before we have a new power plant. We still have to maintain some energy or some capacity here because of the cost of what the cost will be in order to bring energy from either through transmission or by buying power from LA. When we did the analysis, because of the requirements for spinning reserves and having capacity here, this was a worthwhile investment for us. And the others are pretty minor, with the goal in mind that we need to keep some sort of power here until 2020. And we've also made a decision when we made the recommendation to City Council that other units except for unit number 4 and unit number 9, if we have to make a major investment, we're going to basically run them to failure and we will no longer invest in them. So that's really based on the need and how much it would be and what that would do to prolong the life of the unit. Okay?
Yeah, you already addressed my next line of questioning, which was, couldn't we get a PPA for the spinning reserves or anything like that? But if the cost just doesn't make any sense, then...
Yeah. We are currently negotiating with our balancing authority, which is Los Angeles Water and Power, a power purchase agreement that would help us mitigate some of the requirements that we have. So we've addressed the transmission requirements with them, and now we're addressing a PPA that would give us what we need to get us through the repowering.
Thank you. That's it. Madam Clerk, next item.
Next, 5C is water capital improvement projects.
Let me introduce Mr. Michael DeGhetto. He's the Assistant General Manager for the Water Department.
President Pro Tem Hale and members of the Commission, my name is Michael DeGhetto, Assistant General Manager for Water, and I'm going to introduce one of our senior civil engineers, Gerald Tom, who's going to go through the presentation on our capital improvement program. His group, our project delivery group in the water division, oversees the program.
Good afternoon, President Pro Tem Hale and Commissioners. Again, my name is Gerald Thompson, Senior Civil Engineer with the Water Division. I'm here to present to you the Capital Improvement Program for a report. So, as my colleague mentioned, Mr. Keenan went over the strategic plan already, so I'm going to skip over that, except for one point I want to make is reduce unaccounted water by 5% by June 2016. Actually, what's meant to say is reduce water, unaccounted water to remain below 5% by June 2016. Actually, we're already meeting that goal. We're about 3.5%. And we're continuing to monitor it and make sure that we try to improve as we go. So I'm going to skip over to the Capital Improvement Program section. Okay, the goals of the Capital Improvement Program is to resume we resume our CIP plan in January 2013 with the issuance of the 2013 water bond. And our CIP was prepared to support our strategic plan and address its goals and key initiatives. And our CIP is supported by our 2013 bond as well as pay-go funds, which depreciates our water assets every year, which uses about $5 million a year. And also, our rate adjustments last year gave us the revenue, the funds needed to support our capital improvement program. Our major project is the Water Master Plan. The goal is to provide a strategy for optimizing operation, maintenance, and construction of its potable and recycled distribution system into the future. Specifically, the Water Master Plan allows us to give us a plan to move forward in the future to make sure that we're doing the projects that are most important to our water system. And below are many items in the Water Master Plan that are going to be covered. The next are actually, instead of individual major projects, actually categories of major projects. The first category is potable and recycled water storage improvements. So every winter when water usage is lower, we're able to take some facilities out of service and we're able to inspect them for visible potential structural failures, inspection of paint corrosion and their paint condition, and also inspect the facility sites for drainage, grading, and stability issues. So every year that we find items in our facilities that our crews cannot do, we typically add them to our CIP plan. Below, you can see the various projects that we have currently in our 5-year plan. The next category of projects is potable water main improvements. This is actually the lion's share of our CIP funding usage. These are the most costly projects. And the reason why we need to replace mains is because they do not meet fire flow requirements, or they have they're inadequate to meet system demands during routine and maintenance of storage facilities. And lastly, they may be adequately sized, but because they're unlined, they need replacement because of tuberculation. It reduces the size of the main, so it reduces pressure and water flow. Let's see, I'd like to point out the Ben Lomond Kenneth project. Last Tuesday, that project was awarded by council for construction. Design and construction, actually. It's a design-build project. And the rest you could see are in our CIP plan that will be completed. And I'd like to point out Verdugo Montrose is our cleaning and lining project that we have in our 5-year CIP plan. The next category of projects is actually it's recycled water main extension projects, but The one that's on our plan right now currently is the Chevy Oaks Recycle Water Main Extension Project. And this is in response to the governor's action to require a 20% decrease in potable water usage. So GDP over the years, we will be adding recycled water projects to the CIP plan in combination with GWP, CIP funding, grant funding, and cost-sharing programs. So this particular project will actually save us about 30 acre-feet per year of potable water. And next is accomplishments. Actually, recently we actually had quite a bit of projects completed. Adams Hill potable main replacement is one. The next one is the Betty Davis Recycle Water Extension to Betty Davis Park for LADWP to use recycled water at that location. The next one is Park Manor Reservoir retrofit. We replaced the columns. And actually, this is a little new technology for us. In the past, we've had only redwood timber columns, but now we still are using redwood timber columns, but this one we coated them with a polyurethane coat to it, so it will hopefully last a lot longer than just the bare wood columns. Next is the Upper Shoal Canyon Recycle Water Tank Rehab. We completed that recently as well. The next two I want to point out, the Kenyatta water main improvements, that is complete, but we didn't actually put it up there as complete because we're still under project closeout, so that's why it's still showing up there like that. The next one is the Beaudry hammer issue. We replaced all of the cast iron pipe in the Beaudry Terrace area that were giving us problems due to pressure surges. And so only thing left now is just some closeout work, and also we're going to start up the Glorieta Park pump station and test it and make sure that everything's okay.
Yeah, just for clarification, Gerald, sorry. Clarification, hammer issue basically is sudden pressure for every time we turn the pump on, and that's causes some water main breaks. So that was a project to address what's causing the hammer or the sudden pressure issue so that we do not face any water breaks or water main breaks on the street.
All right. The next few projects it's ongoing, and I just want to point out that the Chrome 6 projects are pretty much winding down, and we're about ready to finish all those in the next few months. And this is a list of our 5-year plan. I'm not going to go over each one, but I want to point out some of the projects that I did not mention in our as a major category. The second item is rehabilitation of Glorieta Wells 6 and also Verdugo Wells A and B. So those are the three that we have currently as far as well rehabs in our 5-year plan. The urban water management plan is a regulatory requirement that we have to do on an ongoing basis. The next few projects are actually pump station improvement projects. Typically, pump stations, we would need to replace the pump and motor because they're inefficient, and to save energy, we need to replace the pumps and motors. The last one there, the Grandview pump station switchgear upgrade, is actually needed because of the upgrades to the Grandview substation. The next few projects are potable water tank rehabilitation projects. I mentioned that a little bit already. And this next slide shows you our potable water main improvement projects that are planned for the next 5 years. And the last slide is our recycle water tank rehab projects. And I already mentioned about Chevy Oaks. That's the last project on the list. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Yeah, I have some questions I don't know I'm asking. For this underground cast iron or metallic, pipes that you have, do you using, anti-corrosion systems? I mean, you have cathodic protection or sacrificial anode and these sort of things to protect that pipes?
Oh, I'll defer that to Mr. DeGhetto.
President Pro Tem Hill, members of the commission, we actually don't have any impressed current cathodic protection systems on any of our mains. That would be more for like welded steel mains where you have the conductivity like
But
that.
I'm asking for sacrificial anodes.
No, we don't. And our soil types don't really show that there's issues on the outside of the pipes with corrosion. The corrosion is typically on the interior with the tuberculation, like Mr. Tom had mentioned. So on some of the projects where the material or the wall thickness of the main is still in good shape, we might do a cement mortar coating and relining project where we go in, clean out the tuberculation, and do relining. And then in other projects like in the Beaudry Terrace area, it actually turned out that the mains that were installed at the time of that development were pretty thin-walled and not able to handle the pressures in that area. And they were also turned out put in at a more shallow depth than we would normally do. So when we did this project, we replaced those with ductile iron, and we went to the proper depth to help protect those mains.
Thanks. My other question is, for these larger pumps that we have the motors, are you using variable frequency drives for soft starting?
In some cases we use VFDs. In some cases we have just soft start panels, and especially on the larger pumps. At some of the smaller stations, just doing across the line starting
because
is fine.
you were talking about hammering, effects. I was wondering,
Yeah, in a lot of cases, because our stations are older, what we use is pump control valves, they're called, where they're pilot actuated valves that will open slowly and close slowly when the pump starts or stops. But one of the strategic plan initiatives related to energy consumption in the water system, and that's definitely an area that we can look at improving. Part of you have to do a cost-benefit analysis because that switchgear is actually very expensive. It's usually more expensive than the motors and the pumps, to tell you the truth. The electrical components are a big cost associated with those pump stations. So that's something as we go forward we'll take a look at.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a quick question. I'm curious to know, I've noticed some chatter on local social media websites and also a couple of letters in our local paper where people have posed the question as to whether Glendale has the infrastructure to service new homes that are being built in our downtown area. So questions have arisen such as, well, here we are in the middle of the drought and we're all being asked to cut back on our water use. And at the same time, we're building thousands of new units in our downtown area. How can we possibly spare the water for these units?
Yeah.
So I'm curious to get some information about the connectivity between these new homes that are being built, these new residences, and the need for water.
Commissioner Olal, to address that question, our usage now is actually lower than it was in the early 2000s. So we definitely have the capacity to serve more developments and new developments. And the issue with the drought and basically going to 2 days a week watering is really, I think, what those questions relate to, is that the water supply is just not there from the state. And I'll go over that during my drought presentation some more. I'll go through some of those same slides I go through at the front of that presentation. So the issue today is really related to just having the water available at all, statewide. And it's not really related to the infrastructure or Glendale Water and Power's ability to serve those developments.
And that's probably a good segue for the next. Mr. DeGhetto is going to be presenting to you an update on the water conservation and the drought. So why don't we get into that and let Tanya read that to record.
Okay. 5D Water Conservation Drought Update.
President Pro Tem Hale, members of the commission, my name's Michael DeGhetto, Assistant General Manager for Water at Glendale Water and Power. and I'm going to give a drought update. And I think it's only been about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks since the last time I gave the update. But there are definitely some items to go over. So again, I'll start with, we're currently in phase 3 of the drought ordinance, which is 2 days a week watering, Tuesday and Saturday, for no more than 10 minutes at each station. And this methodology is what we're using to reach our mandated goal of 20% reductions for the city of Glendale. And it's basically to cut back on outdoor watering. As we've talked about before, I'm going to ask, can you put that on the slide? On the presentation, that little presentation. Thanks. So our water comes from outside sources. It's imported water for the most part, starting up Lake Shasta, Lake Oroville, through the Bay Delta, down the State Water Project, and then also from the Colorado River Aqueduct to basically the Metropolitan Water District. And the city of Glendale is a member agency of the Metropolitan Water District. Right now, the State Water Project deliveries are cut back by 80%. And that's due to basically the lack of water in Northern California. And that's a picture of Lake Oroville in 2011 and in 2014. And 70% of our water is imported water through Metropolitan Water District. And we're one of 26 member agencies of Metropolitan, and Metropolitan serves 19 million residents in the area in Southern California. 30% of our water comes from local groundwater, which is limited to the amount that we can pump out of the San Fernando Basin by the adjudication or the judgment related to that basin. And we do between 4,000 and 5,000 acre feet per year in the San Fernando Basin, and we can do up to 3,800 acre feet in the Verdugo Basin. And the issue in the Verdugo Basin is that the groundwater levels are very low because of the lack of precipitation. So that's actually affecting the physical amount that we can pump out of that basin. And then recycled water is about 2,000 acre feet a year in our system. So at the last meeting, I gave this slide talking about the month-to-month percentage cutbacks compared to 2013, and then the cumulative amount. And this time I'm showing it from when we started phase 2 in August of 2014. And then I'm also showing where we started basically in May, the start of phase 3. So we started phase 3, cut back to 2 days a week watering, and we got a 23% reduction compared to 2013. Now the June numbers, it's 24% reduction compared to 2013. So definitely that methodology of basically focusing on outdoor watering, doing 2 days a week, is really helping us to meet that goal. And I really appreciate, all the customers and everybody like taking their turn and cutting back on watering. And as we spoke about before, the summer months is when most of the usage is. So having those higher percentages, like the 23 and 24% in the summer, is going to help us basically get through the winter to come out at the end with our overall 20% reduction. Because, typically in the winter, we don't water that much outdoors, so it's really going to be hard to get, say, a 20% reduction in January compared to 2013. So having our percentages a little bit higher in the summer is really going to help get us there. One thing I brought that wasn't in my presentation, and I'll hold it up, and maybe this can show up on the camera. Some messaging that we're doing is we're going to have dials that kind of show the same information, where we've got our cumulative amount, the 11%, and then we've got our month-to-month, which was 24% in June. And that'll be, I think it's called the Source, like electronic newsletter. I think it'll be the first place we're going to have that. So that's like another way to help to help visualize the numbers. In June, 385 customers received their first warning, 55 second warning, third warning for leak letters. We've mailed out 85. And again, the leak letters are our AMI system can kind of tell if there's a leak or a suspected leak at a house, so we'll let people know. We did 52 calls to customers and had 42 field visits. So we have staff going out now and driving through the neighborhoods and taking photographs, and being able to embed that photograph in the letter that we send to the customers to say that we've noticed that they might be watering on the wrong days or things like that, or at the wrong times also. And I think last time we spoke about this a little bit about, do the warnings work? And it kind of does. I mean, if there's 385 first warnings and there's only 55 second warnings, it seems like most folks maybe didn't know that they were watering on the wrong days or watering for too long. So it helps to get those letters.
Question for you on that. Do you have a way of knowing without getting a call whether folks are watering on the wrong days?
We can tell from the data, from the AMI data, because the water use is so much higher when you're watering than taking showers or doing things like that. So there is a way to tell. And we'll use that data right now. What we use that is, say we receive a call from someone, is we can check that data and see if it makes sense, before sending a letter.
Excuse me, and how you measure that? I mean, what is the amount that you're considering to surpass the limit?
There's no limit on individual customers, so it's citywide. We have to cut back 20% to meet the state mandate. In order to tell, the way to think about, because I get asked that question a lot, maybe I'm just taking a long shower or something like that, is you can think of each sprinkler nozzle like a shower head. So typically when you run one zone, there might be 6 or 9 shower heads going at once. So you can really see that difference when you look at that data. But it's not set per person. We're achieving that 20% goal basically by the 2 days a week watering. And the data shows that that's actually a good methodology. Because we've had 2 good months. It was like 23 and 24%. So. And again, customers can go to our website, look up different ways, different kinds of plants to put. We have this up all the time, not just during the drought. It just makes sense if you want to cut back on your watering and have more efficient landscaping. And then we have, appliance rebates, landscape classes, and other kind of rebates. And I took off the turf. That's no longer available.
So still we have this turf removal rebate, or
no? The turf removal rebate was fully subscribed, and all that money's been allocated.
I think you have applied for extension. Have you? Or people were asking,
I think there was a limited amount of time where folks could go in and put their name on a waiting list.
So, as I understand it, MWD is not taking any new applications, but if you have a currently pending application for the turf reduction rebate, you can request an extension to reserve your allocation in the program and reserve your place in the queue.
Yeah, because as customers do the replacements and turn in their invoices, they may not spend the whole amount. Or maybe some folks that got a reservation just don't end up doing the projects.
Yeah, but a lot of folks are still keeping their reservation, and that's causing a little bit of a budgetary problem for MWD because there's a lot of money still left in the program, but it's not flowing out towards actual turf reduction because of people aren't completing their projects. So I'm assuming at some point that MWD is going to act to cancel reservations and say you've been in the queue for 2 years now, you haven't done your project yet, we have to free up the money for someone who is actually going to reduce their time.
And they're going to bring all that back to their board and discuss that with their board as well.
Question regarding, or did you have a question?
Oh, go ahead, Al.
Sorry. So, question regarding, I guess, reliability. It strikes me that by having folks water on just 2 days a week, that perhaps that might put additional stress on the infrastructure. Everybody that is using their watering systems on Tuesdays and Saturdays as opposed to spreading it out over the week. You know, is that an issue? And if so, are there ways to mitigate the stress on the infrastructure?
Yeah, so our system actually can handle that, essentially because we're using so much less than we would typically be used to using. The other reason our system can handle it is, for the most part, it's gravity fed, meaning that there are reservoirs at elevations higher than where the users are. So there's really no stress related to the reservoir meeting that demand. It just flows by gravity into the mains. So, and we haven't had any issues related to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. So I'm glad that you asked it. And I'm curious to know, I'm an optimist, and I believe that one day this drought will end. One day it will be over, and it will start to rain, and the snow will start to fall. And I want to know what thinking at this point GWP has about how we transition the lessons that we've learned from this drought into forward-thinking policies to maintain these lessons once the rain comes back. Because I think that the fear that I would have is that we've gone through this exercise of experiencing a drought that is unprecedented in our history. And at the same time, we've had to educate ourselves as consumers, as water consumers, about how to change in our behavior and change our hardware in our homes, change our expectations about what our homes and our gardens are going to look like. And I would hate to see all of that just go straight out the window the minute that it clouds over. Do you see my point?
Yeah, I do, and that is a good point. One of the reasons that Met went through that turf removal rebate is to sort of change people's minds about how yards should look, and trying to get folks to embrace more California native, drought-tolerant type of plants, and plants that actually are made for this climate. And so I think what happened, say the last time there was a drought, and there was a lot of emphasis on indoor watering and indoor water efficiency. And really after that happened, and folks replaced their appliances with more efficient water use devices, when the drought lifted, it didn't go back. Demands didn't go back to where they were before that, and they call that demand hardening. So there's full expectation that there'll be some demand hardening after this drought, and in some ways it may actually be more, because so much more water is used outdoors. So all the folks who have replaced and taken out their turf, those demands are going to be gone now forever. So I think that will help going forward, not just go back to the way it was. And then also just, I think, perceptions. I mean, when a lot of neighbors in a neighborhood have replaced that, you get more used to that look and how those things go. So that'll definitely help. And I think one of the things at GWP that we've done a little differently, and as Mr. Tom mentioned, is thinking about, as we go through our capital program planning, and adding in recycled water projects and main extensions to our normal program. Typically we've got like a limited amount of resources based on our rates to do our program, and we want to avoid main breaks and things like that, and be aggressive as we can on main replacement projects. But now as part of this drought, we're like, okay, there's a few more big projects related to the recycled water that we can add into that program. So that's like changed our perspective a little bit, maybe to move some of those up in priority and use some of that money to do those projects to permanently reduce usage and shift it to recycled.
Thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, I was wondering, when the consumption is reduced drastically, are you changing your valve settings, or the same infrastructure serves the same thing?
The same infrastructure serves the same, I guess, lower demand. Basically the valves and the pump stations will be set on pressures or levels of the reservoirs. Now, the only thing that we are looking at and have maybe kept some settings the same as the winter is the reservoir levels. So say in the winter when we have lower demands, we might run the reservoirs at like lower settings to increase turnover in the reservoir and keep the water quality fresh. Then we've been able to keep some of the reservoirs kind of at those same winter levels as opposed to the summer levels that we would normally used to.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Madam Clerk, next item.
6, oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not part of the agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes or 3 minutes. Commission may request to respond to the speaker, but there is no debate or decision. The general manager may refer the matter to the appropriate staff for investigation and report.
So I don't have any cards before me, unless anybody wants to fill one out and tell us about your weekend or anything like that. So, Madam Clerk, next item.
Okay, 7, agenda forecast.
So, members, there are 6 items on our next agenda, starting with the election for a new commission president, an update on electrical storage, a risk management policy update, an RPS update, a water conservation drought update, and the Chrome 6 report. Any recommendations for amendments to the agenda for next meeting?
And if I may, just for the benefit of our new commissioners, the policy that this commission has adopted is that any commissioner can request to have an item on the agenda, and it just requires the concurrence of one other commissioner to add it to the agenda, just for your information.
Thank you.
And President Pro Tem Hill, one of the agenda items she requested RPS update along with the bill position. That's already in next month's agenda item, and we will address your questions next month.
Yeah, and Madam Clerk, if you could note to make the agenda consistent with our actions today so that we can talk about the legislative update in the context of the RPS update, that would be great.
And if I may ask, so is your intent to have this as an action item so that you could make a recommendation to City Council in that regard, or just an update?
Actually,
or?
potentially, yes. So depending on the feedback we get from staff, we might want to make some recommendations for the council to take up as part of their legislative program. And commissioners, I'd actually like to get an update at our October meeting on the business plan for the fiber optic resources at the utility, and start to open up a dialogue with the staff as to what that might look like, if there's an appetite for it among any one of you on the commission.
I concur.
Okay. Any other requests for changes to our forecast?
I have none.
Seeing none. Next item.
8, adjournment.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Without objection, we are adjourned.